The last time I did a moon landing video was October last year, and it had one of the lowest like to dislike ratios on this channel. That being said, I simply had to return to the topic because people still keep getting things wrong. Hold on to your lunar landers, this is going to get bumpy. Hello everyone, and thank you very much for joining me for another episode of Tinfoil Tuesday with me, Simon Dan. Yes, today we're looking at the moon landings again, and in particular a channel called Taboo Conspiracy. He is a new addition to the Globebusters team.
A 15-degree-per-hour drift.
Thanks, Bob. And he has produced a 45-minute video as to why the moon landings were fake. We're going to tackle this in several parts, today being part 1, so let's dive in and see what Taboo Conspiracy has for us.
There are so many problems that this entire presentation could be on the lunar lander.
I really don't like the lander bashing.
The first huge problem I want to discuss about the lunar lander is the fact that it was never flown on Earth. Not even once.
And why would a full lunar landing practice be done here on Earth? It was designed to land on the moon, a body which has 1/6 the gravity as Earth does.
Please go and try to find a video of astronauts getting some flight time in this piece of junk.
Now, normally before saying such a statement like this, it would be wise to do some research, wouldn't it? Both Apollo 9 and Apollo 10 tested the lunar landers, and there are a plethora of videos out there showing this.
Just think about it. This drama prop was never, even allegedly, flown by an astronaut on Earth in front of a camera. In fact, besides NASA's alleged dubious pictures in space, there is zero proof that this alleged vehicle could actually fly.
So for a vehicle which is designed to land on the moon, and let's remember was built and designed and owned by NASA, you want someone else other than NASA to take a video to prove that it can fly. And who else is going to take this footage, genius?
This comical contraption, after traveling 234,000 miles in space...
Well, yes, most of that distance, but let's remember an environment with no air in it.
Supposedly fell from lunar orbit at 4,000 miles per hour, and this difficult maneuver was never practiced.
Well, we will come to that. But also, Apollo 10 astronauts descended in the lunar lander to up to 14,000 meters above the surface of the moon before successfully rendezvousing with the command module.
The lunar lander landed in poor visibility on very rough, crater and boulder infested terrain that was all the same Portland cement color. Just imagine how easy it would have been to hit a boulder or fall into a crater when you only have these small windows flying over terrain that all looks like Portland cement.
Wrong again. The lunar lander was equipped with an automatic landing system. However, during the Apollo 11 descent, Neil Armstrong noticed the boulder-strewn area and took manual control, successfully landing it on a flat plane past the crater.
This difficult type of landing was never practiced.
Dear oh dear. This is Neil Armstrong in front of the Lunar Excursion Module Simulator in February 1969, just 5 months before the first moon landing.
The lunar lander ascent stage then supposedly blasted off the moon, again achieving 4,000 miles per hour to rendezvous up in space with a spaceship that had been orbiting the moon dozens of times. Again, this maneuver was never practiced on Earth.
Our survey said...
The ascent was practiced many times in the Lunar Module Mission Simulator.
Here is Armstrong flying one of the much smaller so-called training vehicles in optimal conditions. In this vehicle, he has full visibility and there is no rough terrain.
Hang on, you just said it was never practiced here on Earth, and then you debunk yourself seconds later. Brilliant.
The accident almost killed Armstrong, but he wasn't alone. 3 of the 5 training vehicles crashed, and the training vehicles were much smaller, had much better visibility, were flown in optimal conditions, over runways, in daylight, were never flown in situations similar to what would be experienced on the moon.
And why is that? Let me see. No air, no clouds, no weather, no wind, lower gravity, etc., etc.
And still, 3/5 of the training vehicles crashed.
Gravity's a right old little bugger, isn't it?
That is not a good safety record, and these were far simpler craft. Notice that the conditions the training vehicle was flying over were nowhere near what would happen on the moon. It's flying over an airfield. You'd think that NASA would want its astronauts trained to fly in low visibility over rough, rocky terrain so that its astronauts would have practice not hitting a boulder or falling down a crater. Yet, NASA didn't find it prudent to have the astronauts actually practice flying the lunar lander on Earth.
Okay, picture this. You are a boss of a company that wants to test something. This something costs $50 million to build. Now, you've tested some more basic versions of it, but unfortunately they've crashed. Now, do you then send 3 of your really expensive things off to be tested in Earth's gravity to end up as $150 million smashed all over a runway?
No reasonable, prudent person would consider this a safe way of landing on the moon. Could you imagine what would have happened if Apollo 11 crashed its untested lander and the astronauts all died a horrible death, and the public found out that NASA never actually had the astronauts practice flying the lunar lander multiple times on Earth?
Except they did practice. Your reasoning is incredibly biased. When a pilot first ever takes the stick in an aeroplane, they have spent hundreds, if not thousands of hours in a simulator. Now, would you say that they haven't practiced properly, or would you be more than happy to get on that flight?
Next, they want you to believe that this piece of junk could support life up to 3 days on the moon. What kind of life support would be necessary?
Oxygen, a water tank, and a food container.
What kind of air conditioning would be necessary in the harshest environment imaginable? The temperature on the moon allegedly varies from negative 387 Fahrenheit at night to 253 Fahrenheit during the day.
A thermal blanket covered the lunar lander that was in some places 25 layers of aluminium thick to guard the astronauts against the extreme temperature changes.
The Apollo 17 astronauts supposedly re-entered the lunar lander on 3 occasions after even driving around in a dune buggy. What kind of dust-absorbing system did it have?
Airlock.
Where were the batteries to give it power for 3 days?
The lunar lander used 7 military-grade batteries with an extra one added after Apollo 13.
How much oxygen did it have to repressurize on each occasion and last for 3 days?
The lunar lander had 2 oxygen tanks on board, each of which contained 22 kilograms of oxygen. Again, after Apollo 13, this was enough to last 90 hours.
How was there so much room in the lunar lander that NASA was able to attach a dune buggy on later missions?
Here is the lunar roving vehicle being packed onto the lunar module. Not too difficult.
Did NASA have the foresight to leave a large trunk for a fold-up dune buggy with tires and large 1970 batteries?
No.
What about all of the bulky experiments? Where did they fit?
Come on now, you really are clutching at straws, aren't you?
The lunacy of the lunar lander should be enough to convince any thinking person that the moon landings were fake. But we can't stop now.
Except I've explained literally everything to you. This is Exhibit 1 complete, and we'll leave this now and look at his next set of exhibits in Part 2. Thank you very, very much for joining me today for Tinfoil Tuesday. If you liked it, then please do like and subscribe. It would be thoroughly appreciated. I have, as ever, been Simon Dan. Have yourselves a great day, and I'll see you all tomorrow for this month's comments video. See you then.